What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another panel show, and we've got a debutant making his first appearance on the panel show today, George from Do-Rag Diaries. How are we doing, George? We all saw you on the watch-along, brought home 3 points against Brentford, but how are you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, man, I'm good. It was good to be on the watch-along. I know some people were saying that George and Ash might be the lucky duo. It was our first win in a long time, so maybe when we have a big game, we might need to make that happen. But no, it was a pleasure, and yeah, look, good to be here on some good pastures. Because last time it was 3 points, this time it's after 3 points. I'm like, yeah, I can finally be happy for once.
Manifest that positivity, George. Just like my brother next to me, he's the king of manifesting positivity. But we'll bring on Johnny H, returning to the panel show. He as well, it was quite a while ago, did his first watch along on Galatasaray game. Didn't bring the luck as maybe George did, but how are we doing, Johnny?
Yeah, no, all good. Listen, like George says, it's great to come on after a win, however we got it. And after a fantastic demonstration and a show of support for Change for Spurs. So all in all, a very good weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And we watched Match of the Day. I mean, I actually even watched Match of the Day.
You know what, Johnny? It's funny you should say that, because that was the first time I watched Match of the Day in probably
weeks.
This turn of the year, I think, since the turn of the year.
First Match of the Day of 2025.
Yeah, literally. Sim, all good?
Oh, look, 3 points. We've got to enjoy the wins while we can at the moment, because there's been very few of them in recent weeks. And I think, hopefully, this win can kind of be a turning point when it comes to the players coming back. Maybe that positivity is going to start flowing through the squad now. I do think when you look at that team and you look at that bench, and all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, we have options. And this squad ain't too bad when it's looking like that. And I think we've been decimated for so long. I think all of us forget that we actually do have, that these players aren't dead. They are coming back, and we do have a squad when they are fit and available. And wasn't the best performance. We'll get into that, but I think there were signs that things could start to turn, hopefully.
Yeah, I guess we'll start with George, because, I got to the stadium, I looked at my phone, I see the lineup, and I see Maddison in there, I see Vicario in there. You look at the bench, and you're like, wow, we're not holding a creche on the bench anymore. We've actually got players that can come on and make an impact. Odebear, Brennan Johnson, Destiny Udogie, these kind of players. And, you're looking at the performance against Manchester United. I don't think it was a performance that blew us away, but now you're seeing these players come back. Can we really kick on from it now?
Yeah, it's one of those games when you look at it, the performance itself wasn't that pretty, and it's going into the game. I don't think any of us expected it to be a pretty performance. We've seen some really bad ones coming into it. Aston Villa and Liverpool were two of our worst games of the season. So when you just go into this game with a low expectation, all you really wanted the team was to do, get the job done. It's 3 points. It's a big team. It's one of the worst teams that you could play at the moment. And it was just about getting the job done. So that's what we've done. And when you look at the team that we put out, I was impressed. I think Maddison had a good performance. I think we leaned on our senior players, and they actually done what they've been needing to do for the past couple of weeks. Because the likes of Bentancur, the likes of Maddison, the likes of even Basuma, Ben Davies, I'd say, is probably the one player that's been a rock at the back majority of the time that he's played. He's not really made too many mistakes. He gives you a moderate level of performance. It's never an 8 or 9 out of 10, but it's always a 7. He's always just going to give you a decent performance at the back, and he's maintained that. But I think in this game in particular, we leaned on those senior players. I think Bentancur was a lot more positionally disciplined. He held that 6 role well, didn't bomb forward so much, so he was sitting in front of the defense. Having Danso there has been a huge boost as well. I feel like that game was one where I really looked at him. I was like, okay, this is what I like to see. He's playing a bit like Romero. The way he steps up in the press, he can be aggressive at times. He's even confident to go forward down the right wing, do a few passes, try put a cross into the box. With his forward play, he wants to make things happen. So again, it's things that we can look at and take positives from. I don't think that I'm looking at and I'm like, yeah, Ipswich, Man City, these are easy 3 points now. I don't think it's ever going to be that case with Spurs, but it's one where I'm going to look at the team. I'm like, Jed Spence had another amazing performance. And just really going to have to start questioning what he did say the other day, because Jed Spence, for me, is the one player, the first name on the team sheet. Since he's been in the team, I haven't seen one bad performance from him. And then you got to look at the likes of Odebert, who came back very bright, exciting on the left wing. There was that one moment in the second half, saw Jed Spence, Odebert, and Tell, and I was, dare I say it, I was like, wow, we might have our Tottenham back, like footballers. Actual
Come on.
footballers. The guys actually
We're
do the
back,
job,
people.
and they're actually almost. But yeah, like it just looked like we've got a lot of young players now, and they're all starting to breed together. And it might come to similar to what Chelsea did at the back end of last season. If you can just put a run together, get some really good games like they did with Pochettino, the season won't look so bad. But it's about going out there and getting that and picking up a win streak, because I don't think Spurs have won 3 Premier League games in a row for, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure it's like nearly 18 months or something like that.
It's
been
not
a
this
very
season,
long
yeah,
time.
not this season.
Yeah, not this season at all. So it's been a while. So we need to see these players maintain the consistency of the performance, but it's a step forward, and that's the most important thing. It's a step forward from what we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks. And Ange can definitely look at it and say, look, we've got a few players back. Now we can start to figure out some of the solutions, because we've seen him try to adapt and try to, work with the players he's got. But as I think many of us have realized, he's not a manager that's really specialized at doing that. He's got to use his players, and when he does, those players will thrive. So some positives, some negatives, but looking at the next couple games, we can definitely go into there thinking we can get something from them.
So a bit more positivity going in.
Wait, George, when you said Man
games.
United are one of the worst teams to face right now, you meant quality they're bad, or you meant you don't want to face them?
Quality, they're bad. Yeah.
Right, yeah, got you.
No,
Yeah,
like
just
as in,
making
yeah,
sure.
like if there's any top team to face, you're like, yeah, give me United.
Got you, got you.
Exactly what
I was just making sure I was on the same track as you.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have said Man United were one of the best teams in the league, I think there'd be probably something to worry
I
about.
want to know what he's coming here. Maybe it was a better win than I thought. All right.
Johnny talked to me because I saw when Sim mentioned saying Spurs are back now, I saw you grimacing a little bit, smile kind of wiped off your face. So where are you at with it? Do you think with these back-to-back wins in the Premier League, back-to-back clean sheets in the Premier League, is any sort of significance? Can we kick on from here?
I thought Sim was doing a Daniel Levy impression when he said, "I've got our Tottenham. We got our Tottenham." I mean, please come on. Look, a win is a win, and I'm delighted that we won. But let's not get excited, guys. Right? And look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And Ange always says, we got all these injuries. Man United had 11 injuries. He talks about having school kids on the bench. Man United seriously really did have school kids on the bench.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, if Garnacho knew where the goal was and Vicario didn't make numerous saves, there was no way that we were coming out of that with a clean sheet. And I think we can look on that as a bit of a get out of jail that they didn't score a goal. And I've got to be honest with you. Yes, Danso looks good. Yes, we all know the return of the Jedi, Jed Spence, fantastic. But we were carved open far too easily by a very poor Man United team. And
Johnny, not only that, but they're a team that can't really create chances against anyone else consistently.
Correct. I mean, I'm not being funny. People seem to have forgotten. When we played Coventry earlier in the season, bar some horrendous finishing, even a late Jed Spence goal wouldn't have saved us. Or the fact that Tamworth, that heart in the mouth moment when that ball came over, had he connected with it, it would have been our first defeat by a non-league.
Why are you bringing up these games, Johnny? We're back now. These are in the past.
1912. No, what I'm saying is, I don't see any difference, guys. I don't see any difference in the fact that we are still being carved open. And what I'm saying to you is, I will reserve judgment when we actually play a half-decent team. I don't include Ipswich on that yet. Let's be honest, we rested a lot of players before the Ipswich game and got beat. We have to go to Ipswich and wipe them off the park for me to start getting excited. I want to believe that the tide has turned and we're on our way. But for me, the only thing that's important that's left in this season is getting Mickey van der Ven back, getting Romero back, and getting our main players back for the push to win the Europa League. And that, for me, is I want to be in Bilbao with you guys, celebrating, dancing in the streets with this cup, because that, for me, will be the definitive moment for this club. Because I believe if we can win this trophy, we can look back and say, wow, this was a sliding doors moment, because suddenly we're in the Champions League. All that happened in the league is wiped out and is totally irrelevant. Our income goes up, our spending goes up, the quality of player goes up, and we will look back on this and look forward, rather than if we get knocked out, this will be a horrendous season. It really will be, and one that has to be addressed at the end of the season.
But wait a sec, Johnny. Wait a sec, Johnny. I just want to go back to the point you said about, getting into the Champions League and everything will change in terms of our spending going up and the quality of player going up. I mean, has that ever happened for us? Like, whilst being in the Champions, like, are we in a different pool of players right now than when we were in the Champions League? You know what I mean?
Well, I think we got better players, but I think the format now is bringing in far greater income. The income now, if you look at the generating of income, I think Arsenal have already made something like 90 million, which is astronomical in compared to what it was last time.
We've only made 18 million so far in the Europa League. That's the difference.
Correct, and also the fact that when you're trying to, sell Elfsberg managed by Santa Claus, it's very difficult in comparison to selling AC Milan, Juventus, or Real Madrid at home. It's a different ball game, and £30 ticket suddenly becomes a £95 ticket. So, and the spin-offs and the sponsorship, I really feel that this is the only way out of this season, and I think I'd be amazed if the club aren't saying that or talking about that right now. I know a lot of fans are saying, "Oh, we're only 13 points off of, I don't know, 7th place or 6th place."
Who's saying that? Who's
saying that? Who's
saying that?
Ben,
5th place. Who's saying that? 13 points.
It's child's play.
They're out there. They're out there. Sim. They're out there. Listen, look.
It's only.
It is only. But look, let's be positive. It's a win, like I said, but there were positives. I mean, they didn't look to exploit Vic at the corners, but he made some fantastic saves. The one where he made the save and then got up quickly to make the second, I thought was superb. And Jed Spence, wow, just absolutely wow. I don't know what Ange has been watching. He was obviously in his shed having a cup of coffee or something when Jed was training. Because right now this guy's undroppable. I think what I'd like to see is, I think Pedro Porro desperately needs a rest, and I'd like to see him switched up to right back, Destiny brought into left back, and give Porro a rest, because we will be needing him for the bigger games to come later on in the season.
Sim,
don't you think though, Johnny?
Go on, George.
Sorry, just briefly, Ben. I just wanted to bring it back to what you mentioned about the money and Champions League money. Don't you think that's sort of an excuse for the ownership to say we need to make more money from Champions League games, we need to make more money from the Championship sponsors and all this stuff? Because at the moment, Tottenham is still revenue-wise up there within the top 10 within Europe, even without having all of these other revenue streams through Champions League. When you go out there and you look at, I know net spend is not necessarily a real thing because clubs are always making money outside of selling and buying players. But if you look at our net spend, it's one of the highest in the Premier League across the last 5 years. But when you actually look at the bigger problem of it, it's the wages. We don't compete with any of the other top 6 or 7 teams with the wage-wise. So when you're going out there and you're getting a Brennan Johnson on £50 million, but he's on 60, 70K per week, it's not the same as going to buy a player for £35 million and putting them on 200k a week, for example. And that's the biggest difference between Spurs and what the players that we're going to attract. Because, like you mentioned, the Champions League players that we may want to bring into the club, they're going to want those big money wages, 150, 200k a week. Just look at Timo Werner. Probably Matisse Tell's probably going to be on money 100k plus a week. So that's where the issue lies, is it not? Not where we need to make more money. It's just what we're doing with it currently.
What I would say is, look, the club have, 50 Cent playing, but we should be called 42%, right? I mean, we are 42%. I mean, that's who we are, okay? And you're quite right. If you want to get the top players, you have to spend the money on the wages. It's all about the wages. Whatever you say about players, they're mercenary, okay? It's as simple as that. Otherwise, Saudi would be sitting there with empty stadiums with no players in it. Okay, they've gone there for the money, pure and simple. And if you're going to pay 42% of your income on wages, but what I'm saying, George, imagine the combination of the massive increase in Champions League money that's taken place this season, coupled with the extra fixtures, coupled with the fact that potentially a new owner, which I'm sure the boys will get onto in a minute, or even this owner showed some ambition. Ambition is not with the number 42%. Ambition is 60, 70%. That is ambition. And, if you combine 60, 70% plus Champions League, I think we are a different football club. That's me personally.
Talking of 50 Cent, Johnny, I mean, I think 50 Cent will definitely miss a trick if you don't play patiently waiting at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because that's what we've all been doing for 24 years. And also, he'll also miss a trick if he doesn't open up with many men and have Ange Postecoglou do the walk at the start. But Sim, talking about our Spurs back, I don't want no sarcasm here. I want to know what you really think. Are Spurs back right now?
I don't think that performance is going to convince anyone that we're back at our best, and that is the performance that is going to be the turning point. I know it wasn't the best performance. I think we probably rode our luck at times. I did think we were better than Man United, and I know Man United, everyone's going to focus on the chances they had, but we definitely had more than enough chances to kill that game, especially on the breakaway. Tell had, I think, 7 shots on the day. He probably should have ended up the game with a goal as well. I think we also had our chances. I think the expected goals we had over 2 compared to Man United. So I think that is actually in line. If you look at the numbers, it's more in line with how we were playing at the beginning of the season rather than during this spell that we've had over the last 2 months. Because before the injuries, we were averaging like over 2 XG and only conceding about 1, and this game was more in line with that than it was with during the injury crisis. We're averaging only about 1 XG and conceding 2. So I think the numbers suggest it's realigning a bit more with kind of the performance before the injury crisis. I would say it was disappointing the good quality chances Man United had, for sure. So I think a lot of it came from our own struggles in build-up, not necessarily due to them carving us open from open play. It was more we would lose the ball with a sloppy pass in the middle of the park and they would spring on us and create an opportunity. And that's something we got to sort out for sure. And obviously, you got people like Dan So, who are new to the team. Obviously, Vicario is just coming back. So I think hopefully these things all will get sorted out. And in a way, it's a weird one because these 5 players coming back, yes, it's obviously it's a massive positive, but as well, it's like we've been kind of trying to gel as a team while they've all been out. So now they've got to be kind of reintegrated, and hopefully the training, they've now had a week in training, and you saw the team was a lot fresher in this game than definitely they have been over the last 2 months. I think that was the biggest element. I think when it comes to tactical stuff, when it comes to how the team looked, I think the pressing was a lot more coordinated, definitely a lot better, higher pressing. I still think defensively there were some issues, and I still think as well going forward some of the patterns of play still needs that kind of rhythm. And I think definitely when we were counter-attacking, number of opportunities to open Man United up, which we failed to capitalise on. I think if we had a more rhythm in our play and the team had a bit more cohesion about them, I think that the game could have easily ended 2 or 3-0 rather than leaving it to 1-0 near the end. And I think that will come with a bit more time on the training pitch, a 1-game week for the next few weeks. Hopefully will help with that. But given the form we've been on and the fact that we've got these players back and the fact that Man United still had a whole bench of youth players and the form, they haven't exactly been on great form either. And the fact they were able to create the number of the chances they had and could have easily taken a point from the game, in all honesty, if they took some chances. I'm not going to sit here and say this was evidence that the corner's definitely turned and it's only upwards from here, but I definitely think there are signs that could be the case. That's what I will say, but I wouldn't say it's conclusive evidence, because if we go and lose to Ipswich, then you're back to square one, and people will say you weren't even good against Brentford and Man United, and you just luckily got the win. And against Ipswich, you got what you deserve. So I think we got to back it up with better performances. We got to perform better than we did on Sunday. But I definitely think there are signs that the tide could start to turn. There's more energy in the team. And you can just see the difference in the quality, having Vicario and Maddison in there. And this is what I was saying during that injury crisis. Yes, we were losing games, but we were only losing games only by the odd goal. And you add a bit more quality, you add a bit more energy, and those will start to turn. And I think that was a bit of evidence that is the case. That those results will start to flip in our favour, and we'll start to win by a goal instead of lose by a goal if we add those little bits to the team. And I think we did that. We got the win. I think Vicario made such a difference. His shot-stopping ability, one of the best in the league. And I think having him in goal, I know Kinski's done well. I'm not trying to shit on Kinski. I think he's stepped in admirably. But you could just see there's a difference in shot-stopping ability. The goal Kinski conceded against Arsenal, the goal Kinski conceded against Villa away, maybe even Leicester as well. Some of these goals Vicario is stopping. He ain't letting those in. And I think that was proof when it went against Man United with superb handling, superb shot-stopping. Maddison, the creativity, the on-the-ball quality, which we just haven't seen in the middle of the park. As much as Bergval's done well, he just doesn't have that ability yet that Maddison possesses, with some of his passing ability and some of that ability to turn players on a sixpence when they're pressing him and create openings like Maddison can do. I think that also just made that little bit of a difference. And look, we can all shit on Man United. We can all say they're rubbish. And it is true, they're not in a great moment at the moment. And they also have a lot of injuries going into this game. But this is also a team that recently went to Anfield and got a point, went to the Etihad and won 2-1, went to Emirates and got a 1-1 draw ticket to penalties, went to Craven Cottage and got a 1-0 win. This was all in the last 6 weeks. So I think as much as we're expected to win, and they're not. I agree, it would have been a massive disappointment if we didn't win. You can't take it as a given. You can't take it as a foregone conclusion, because these teams who you could argue are better than us right now maybe did that, and they came unstuck. So we had to go and win the game, and that's what we did.
The problem I see with us trying to muster up some sort of form now, a lot of the teams that we played over this kind of run, or teams that we've played already, are kind of, we're losing to Leicester at home, drawing to Wolves, losing to Everton, the teams that we should be getting 3 points against. And I know we got Ipswich up next, but after that we got Man City, we got Bournemouth, we've got some of the form teams in the Premier League. So I mean, George, do you feel like we can kind of go toe-to-toe with these teams, the Man Cities, who are really starting to come back into it now? I mean, you look at Man City's performance on the weekend, that really did look like the Man City of old, them really getting back to their best, with Nico Gonzalez in the middle, Omar Mamouche up top with Erling Haaland. And then you got Bournemouth as well with all their injury problems. They're just battering teams left, right and centre. So do you think that we can kind of go on a run with these teams coming up?
It's hard with the Man City game. It's one of those ones where there's always pressure off Tottenham, and Tottenham always tends to turn up. It's like Man City. We are Man City's bogey team. No matter how good, no matter how bad they are, we tend to get a result in that one. So I am leaning towards us being able to get something, whether that's a draw or a win. I think we can leave with something there. I'm probably looking at the Bournemouth game as more tricky for me, because that's against a team that, although they have a lot of injuries, I think a few of their injuries will be due back by that time. Areola, we saw in that first game, they just countered our football so well. When we talk about creating chances and breaking us down, Bournemouth could have scored 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 that game. I just remember them having chance after chance. Yeah. And we were really lucky to walk away with a 2-1. So I'm looking at that game, and tactically, I'm like, this presents problems for Ange. The one good thing is that going into these games, apart from the Man City one, I know we've got the international break just before the Bournemouth one. So a lot of these players can get rest, and they may be able to come back feeling a bit more fitter and fresher. But that City one, it does come midweek. I'm just hoping Man City, obviously, I think tomorrow they've got Real Madrid. On the weekend, they've got Liverpool. And then they're going into that game with us where they probably might look at that game as a rested game because they've got FA Cup on the weekend after that as well. So we're the game in between all their tricky fixtures they got coming up. I know it's only Plymouth, but you've seen what Plymouth done to Liverpool and done to Brentford. So they're probably going to look at it like, we're going to need to keep some players fit and fresh for that one. I think the City game is the one where it presents an opportunity. If we can get a win in Ipswich and then maybe get a draw or some points off City, then that's a good 3-game streak where you're like, okay, team's got a few points here. Every other game after that, it'd be so hard to predict what Tottenham's going to turn up because that's the thing with us this season. You can never really guess how good the team's going to want to perform and if their mentality is actually there and that they want to be that top team, because Kulusevski said it in an interview the other day. His focus is just, look, never getting their head down. We've now got to get into that top half of the Premier League and we've now got to take and focus on what we can, and that's Europa League. We've got to get the wins in Europa League. But at the same time, I think there's a few players in the team that we've seen far too often, their heads go down as soon as that first goal gets conceded. And that's where the issue is. It's in the game itself. The players lose themselves. So they just need to make sure they're focused on the goals ahead of them and they're unified as a team. Because like Sim pointed out, I think the biggest return for me, Vicario in goal. Big Vic in goal. He's a real leader. I feel like he's the only person I look at the team and say, he's an actual captain. He's a leader. He's someone that leads by example, but also he's berating the team consistently. And that back line is the one that's constantly talking to them. And I think we've missed that because when Kinski or Forster's been in goal, it's been very messy. The gaps between the defenders, they're so far apart. There's no one really directing and guiding them. So I think he's been a huge return for us. And look, we saw the last time we actually did have a home win or a big win was when he played against City. And we've been horrible since that game. So having Big Vic return, I think it's gave us that boost and that calmness for when teams are attacking. We know we got a confident goalkeeper there who can deal with it.
Yeah, and everyone's bemoaning the fact of leadership on the pitch. And you look at it, Romero, Maddison, Vicario, all 3 players that are part of the leadership group alongside Sonny have all been out for long stretches. And I totally agree. Vicario is a massive plus for us going into it.